Okay, what does playing long mean to you?
To me, playing long means I am getting my hands in front of me. I'm playing with my hips behind me and low,
Okay,
where I can bring my hips up and through.
okay, well,
And it's getting the hand, not in, when I say in front, my levers are out to where I'm making first touch with the man, if that makes sense.
well, that's what we said when we started using the term playing long. Um, we were at Penn State, okay, and I had
Yes, sir.
these 6 foot seven, like, you know
Yep.
NFL type players,
Oh,
and so all we said was I have a length advantage to begin with, but if my hands are late, if I drop my hands too far, I'm going to be late, and all these defensive line types, what they'll sit there and they'll hit that sled and they just lock it out and they just keep and what they're doing is they're trying to get their hands trained to hit you in the chest.
yes, sir.
Okay, so what we said was, okay, we sometimes we're going to have our elbows bent, sometimes we're going to have our elbows a little straighter, sometimes we're going to snap our elbows so that they're completely locked. Sometimes we're going to, throw hook shots and tear, but what we want to make sure is that we don't wind up. And, I started thinking about, you know, people are always talk about hand strikes. Well, hand strikes are they're useful if the defender is not what I call a heavy load. If he's not like real hunkered down and condensed himself, or he's not charging you with low pads. He's exposing his chest, or if you're hitting him from the side, if you're a drag blocker, what we call hammer or what have you, he's tied up with somebody else. And what locking your elbows, the idea was to keep your head totally out of it so that you didn't have to travel as far with your feet, and you could still get to a linebacker. Keep an open leg, whatever leg when we cow tip, we keep the far leg open, et cetera, and so on. So long really became, can I see my hands and can I see the guy? Okay. Now, somewhere along the line, long became like lock your arms out, and I never told guys to do that. Um,
Yeah.
I practiced different strikes, on the medicine ball. I don't know if you took a look at that video that I posted to you guys.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's like 10 years old, and
Yep.
we were working on a couple of things that I kind of want to revive. Stuff is a thing where I'm going to put when you make force three different ways. Okay, you push, you pull, and you torque. Okay, that's the
Yes,
only
sir.
way the human body can make force. And when I say push, you're pushing yourself essentially, or pushing him away from you. You're trying to get away from him or push him away from you. When you say pull, you're actually pulling him towards you. We used to call it the V and the hooks, hooked elbows, and thumbs are in the V, and we're grabbing and we're trying to pull the man out of the ground and pull him. We're actually pulling him towards us or pulling ourselves towards him, because the act of pulling brings your feet. And I used to call it lift, but now I call it flip. Okay, you're trying to flip them up like a tire.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yep.
so your question is the gap scheme, and I want you to tell me, like, in what part of the gap scheme you're considering using, and what long is.
Where I'm looking at it is on your step, going off your drill,
Uh huh.
looking at your video
Right.
where y'all are hitting the tip of the med ball, where you're extending out.
Okay.
You're almost over. I don't want to say overextending, but you can tell your third step is getting up in there to the knee. You're getting high with your gallop step, and you're hitting the hip with your hands You're snapping the wrist in there.
Well, that's what we call a cow tip. Okay, so if I'm the right tackle and I'm going to go and hammer with the right guard, okay, we used to use what we called hay bale. So the right guard would grab the guy, okay,
Yep.
and the right tackle would what we call cow tip. He'd keep his right leg open, and he would initiate by skipping with his right leg. Uh, so he'd be going to his left. He'd bring his right leg in, and that allowed us to adjust to the defender with our left leg. Okay. Now the problem with that is you're gaining you're gaining. I don't know how else to say it. You're certainly gaining width, but you're also crossing the line of scrimmage with the cow tip. Okay. And what we started to say was, well, that's all well and good, but the guard has got to be there. He's got to grab a full man. And even if he keeps his open leg, his left leg open, he's got to be totally committed to that full man, and he's sort of exposed the gap, if you know what I mean. Um, so we started looking at it. We took and went to the shoulder roll, and we said to the tackle, well, I want you to get. I don't care so much about how much vertical or across the line of scrimmage. I want you to get your hip to the guard, or I want you to get to the guard's hip. And if you get to the guard's hip and eliminate the space in between you, you're going to wind up grabbing that man, and you're the guy that's going to flip him. So you're in the act of drive blocking. Okay, so you see what I did? I switched it. So the guard, even though he's the post man, he's taking half a man rather than a full man. And we're trying to give access to the tackle and let him take a full man. It's more like an overtake. Guys used to use the word overtake. And to me, we eliminated the run throughs. A gap run through was gone. They as soon as you step inside, however you step, I call it a gator step now. With the shoulder roll, what we're trying to do is coil that guard and get the shoulder down, and actually apply the hands late or just one hand. And I'm just working now with a guy in Pennsylvania about a different approach to that. So you would step with the gator step, then get square. If you can get your headgear inside of that man and get your outside shoulder on him, you'll really tee him up for the tackle, and you'll be able to escape with the open leg. So if you use the hay bale, okay, what we're saying to the guard is you grab that man, okay.
Yeah, we're using a hay bale, and we're coming up straight from, like, if we're in a 3-point stance at right guard.
Okay.
And essentially my hand is splitting that man's crotch.
Okay.
I'm bringing that hay bale straight up and through, trying to rip and lift right there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I do.
I'm lifting and driving his shoulder. I tell my guys, try to take his shoulder pads and put that that hard part of the plastic through his throat.
Okay.
And get that lift right there with that hay bale. And then we're taking our left hand, our inside hand. And honestly, I've been doing it for years, and you tell me if it's bad, no, I can fix it. But we're taking our left hand, and we are grabbing all the way around him to where the shoulder pads separate in the back. And we are giving a slight jerk. We're jerking down as we lift up.
No, I think that's fine. I think
if that makes sense.
No, it's fine.
And once we jerk, we let go so we don't get the holding call called. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
While our left leg's open still for any A-gap run through.
Well,
the A-gap run through is not a major concern for us.
Okay. Well,
because my tackles are knocking that guy so far in, if that makes sense.
Well, no, the A-gap run through sounds like you got a chance. We felt as though the hay bale, we were saying to the guard, you're like the tee for the ball, like a golf ball. You're like the golf tee, and the tackle, you're the club. But the problem is a nose rock, a looper from the other side, not just that linebacker that you've almost got leverage on, but somebody coming from the far side, okay, and along the line of scrimmage. So, my deal was always we're going to eliminate the TFL. We're not going to let anybody get in our backfield.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, sir, definitely. That's why I love what you. When I first heard you talk, you said that, and I'm like, okay, this is. I want to get this. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the hay bale, I was always uncomfortable with it because I felt like at least momentarily we were going to lose the loop. Now you're saying, okay, the center's got to grab the nose. Well, what if the nose is nose up? I mean, blah 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 blah. You know, what if the nose goes away with the center? The center thinks it's all good, and the other side, the other defensive end or three technique. Let's say you're going against five down. That other guy loops around the nose and hits that A gap, and you're hoping that if you knock that three technique into the gap, it'll shut that off. But sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
Okay, so that's why I like the hay bale. We did it, but I kind of went away from it because this is the way I want you to think about this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, gap scheme to the right is just zone scheme to the left.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Definitely.
So
Yes, sir.
if you were doing that on the backside of zone, if you were doing the hay bale on the backside of zone, you'd expose that gap pretty good, wouldn't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that was I never was comfortable with it. It works, I watch these guys do it every week in the NFL, and I'm like, son of a gun, it's a pretty good idea. I don't know if they're copying me, but it seems like they are.
Yeah, no
But
doubt about it.
but I always felt uncomfortable about that one particular thing. And the other thing is, if your three technique is being trained a certain way, you grab him with that guard, he's gonna grab you.
Right.
Okay, because if he knows there's a game coming from the other side, he's not going to let you go to that gap. But when you step to that gap initially and come back at him with either what we call the shoulder chip, or right now I'm working on a thing where each step gets square, and I was talking to this guy today. I'm not even sure what we're going to call it. I said call it a wedge. So, but I still have that open leg. I'm literally using one hand, but where we lose it, okay, a little bit, is that tackle's got to he's got to totally eliminate any split in between them. Whereas the hay bale, what he was really doing, he was a golf club. He didn't care about the split. The other thing is, if you get a quick swim to the tackle, he can't get his head in front of that. Okay, that's the other. I'm the guard, and I'm teeing this guy up, and he swims it to the tackle. Well, the tackle's second step, whether you skip it or what I see a lot of guys doing is they just initiate at the defensive tackle with their inside foot. If that guy hits the B gap, it's hard to pick him up. So we knew that by skipping with the right foot in and then adjusting with the left foot, we could pick all that stuff up. Okay, and that's why and as far as playing long, the tackle, when you're hay baling, he wants to lock out, but he's not really. He's snapping a little bit with his arms, but what he's really doing is he's sinking into the ground. Okay, he's trying to condense and use gravity and use his back leg, his brace leg, and his front leg, his lunge leg, and he's trying to sink into the ground. Okay, and all that's good, but it's not real dynamic. It's like it's a hit or miss thing. I haven't seen enough. I don't do much football anymore. I'm kind of like I'm not a coach anymore, so I don't know what to tell you. But I haven't seen enough film to say that the hay bale is hurting people, or I just felt like, to me, it was always something that made me feel funny.
Yes, sir.
But
I get what you're saying.
and if you think about it, let's say I'm on the backside of a C gap zone. We're all Apaches, okay? we don't really care about movement there. We just don't want pursuit. But when you're at the point of attack, okay, in a gap scheme of power, you got to get punch. And what we found was vertical punch wasn't as effective as angular punch.
Correct.
So as that tackle comes down and gets in front of that man, we've hopefully given him access to at least half that guy. He's going to flip that shoulder, and they're going to pick that dude up and carry him to the backer in a guard pull scheme. The front backer, we're saying to the guard, and this is where this new technique I think will have carry a little more weight to it. We're saying you're going to steer that double team to the front side spot, and if the linebacker is going to play outside the tackle, the tailback's got to keep it tucked in, okay, and go to the A gap. You're shutting the 3 technique off now, okay, with the guard with his outside shoulder, and it's not I used to use a word called shoulder lift, and it was kind of like a Crowther sled. But the problem with the Crowther sled, if you watch guys hit the Crowther sled, they uncoil.
Yeah.
They straighten their legs out, so they're either their feet are too far back and they can't lift or pull people out of the ground, or they stand up.
Right.
And when they lose the coil, you can tighten up and not get moved, but you're not going to get movement. Okay. And the thing about losing the coil is you can't accelerate. If you have to shut that gap off real quick, if you're standing tall, it's hard for you to accelerate. Okay.
Yes,
So I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, but and I'm not telling you not to use the hay bale, because it's obvious it's working for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I'm saying what I would do now, or what I've done the last time I coached. I coached at junior college, and we were pretty decent with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if that's helping you or hurting you.
No, it helped me. It helped me definitely. I mean, it helps me with I'm just trying to incorporate trying to make, like you said, our gap scheme look as much like zone as possible.
Well, the hay bale doesn't do that.
And the hay bale doesn't do that,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm trying to get away from it. I'm just trying to figure out how to marry it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think what you got to understand with gap scheme too, like when we're running C gap zone, it's really there's no combos. But when you're running A gap, either zone or gap scheme, there's combos. So we have the center calling the combos out. So it's either the guard and the tackle working together, or the center and the guard working together. And they I mean, there's enough video that I have on my website where you can see all those things.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. So, and that, like again, this is just me. I was lucky enough to coach some pretty good kids, but I don't coach now, so I don't know what it's.
No, stuff you still coach, stuff still works. Trust me. We're still finishing everything with a torque, and still talking about supinating and pronating, when to pronate, when to supinate, when to. Oh yeah, I'm still talking about that stuff.
Well, the thing, the push pull torque is interesting. Push, your feet go backwards, so you got think. This is the way I tried to give an analogy to it. I know out in Oklahoma it gets hot. You probably got swimming pools more than you have ocean beaches. And when you're fooling around with the girls, and or a guy, and you want to push them into the pool, okay, and you stand up, you uncoil and just shove them, snap them with your hands, he might grab you by the arms and pull you into the pool with him. But when you sink into the ground and snap them with your hands, you're coiling and you're using gravity to make yourself heavier. Okay? And it's hard for him to pull you off your feet.
Yes, sir.
And that's a fundamental thing. Now, when you're when you're coiled, you can change direction a lot better. Okay? So acceleration, the word acceleration is go, stop, or turn. Okay. Well, when you're up in the air, when you've extended everything, you can't do any of those things. You can't. I mean, it's harder. Let's put it that way. And so we really talk about. I used to call it alligator tail. You know, drag your tail, and then we just started calling it condensed because now we were even talking about arms. Sometimes you want to stick your arms out. Sometimes you want to bring them in, and the smaller and tighter you can make your body, the faster you'll accelerate. Okay, so the question is, I can always make myself long and slow down, but do I want to make myself small? And you know, if I got to accelerate quickly, how do I do that? So you know, these are all things that we say the fundamentals are pretty simple, and I've changed it over the years, but basically it's come down to this: you got to protect your own chest. Okay, you do that with your hands, or you roll your shoulder like Floyd Mayweather. Okay, you've got to coil or condense because that allows you to accelerate. And then you've got to make sure that your feet are solidly stomping the ground because you don't have traction, you don't have anything. Doesn't matter what you do. Okay. Other than that, whatever you're doing, technique, if it applies to, if it's successful, it's probably got those three elements in it. You know, and I don't know. Well, anyway,
no, that definitely helps me. That kind of clarifies it for me. And two, just to clarify of, I agree with you. A lot of people are mistaken playing long to mean locking out their arms all together and look like Frankenstein walking around there.
Yeah, you know, back in the day, back in the early, back in the '80s, people were doing that. They would literally stand up and they'd put their arms out as far as they could, and they would push, and it was great for certain things. It's great for draw. You know, you stand up. Okay, it's basically we don't stand up and stuff. We coil and stuff. Okay, we got to keep our knees bent. We got to keep an open leg. But we're taking a guy. Let's say a guy that's in yellow light. He's in front of us, but he's a little bit to our outside, and we think, well, I want to go and get this guy. I'm gonna put my hands in front of me, and if he comes to me, I'm going to grab him and flip him. But if he starts to two gap me and move closer to head up, or maybe he spikes to the B gap, I want to be able to put my hands on him quickly. Well, if your hands are back, like you know, used to coach with the six guns and all that, it's not fast enough. And even when we used to, you know, when we started with the hooks, our elbows were locked in almost to our ribs, and it's not fast enough. But when we put those elbows away from our ribs and we could see our hands, you can pronate and supinate as needed. So if the guy attacks your C gap and you're shuffling or scooting to him, you just grab him. If he two gaps you and you say, well, good, I'm going to put my hands on him, I'm going to stuff him. You pronate and you stuff him, and maybe the guard knocks him to you, you know, and then you wind up grabbing him anyway, or maybe you stuff him to the guard and he grabs him. You follow me? But one way or the other, you got to get him out of yellow light. He can't be in yellow light. That's the killer. That's where you. Huh?
Pronating is when you're stuffing that guy back door or front door, depending on how he's slanting, how he's playing on your zone and stuff.
Well, again, to pronate, you're pushing away. So I can't imagine a guy now if he's running. Okay, you're running say C gap, and he's running to the sideline. Yeah, you're going to pronate and push him because you can't catch him. You know, and you might even start running, bursting yourself. You know, you might be able to tear him, throw him, or whatever. But what you've got to understand is you can't control what he's doing. But you have to change what he's doing. Okay, so if he's playing heavy into your gap and it's your C gap, you grab his ass and you flip him, and you gotta move him. But if he's playing yellow light and he's kind of lagging behind you, well, you want to kind of push away because you don't want to get shut off. Here's how we started doing it. Okay, I want you to imagine this. I'm the right tackle. I have a defensive end on my right shoulder, and I have an outside backer who I'm assigned to outside of him, and it's, let's say it's pass pro. Okay, I know that if I set across that defensive end's face and the linebacker drops, I'm kind of dead. So I want to kind of set my feet and hands on the defensive end, and I want to keep my eyes on the linebacker. Well, if I do that without playing long, I get shut off. That end will grab me. I can't get to the backer. He hits the quarterback. So I got to I can't cross the end unless I am not going to cross the end unless the end crosses me.
Yes, sir.
But by the same token, if the end grabs me and the linebacker hits it, I got to get off. Well, if I'm all mired in, I got a problem. He's going to grab me and hold me, and that linebacker's going to hit the quarterback. So I try to keep him away from me by playing long. Okay, and that's in a sense I'm stuffing him. I know if the backer hits it, the end's going to go in anyway, so I'm in good shape. But
Yes, sir.
but it's the problem is when the end plays yellow, when he two gaps you, grabs you or whatever, or he waits until the backer hits it, then he becomes a contained man. So
Yes, sir.
those are all things that it all kind of fits in together. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yes, sir. We face a two gap defense every day. So I understand what you're talking about with the stuffing. That's what our tackles have to do anyway. That five's coming under
Sure.
almost all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't care. And what I'm trying to explain to the coaches, they don't care if you reach the five. As long as the five doesn't get reached by the ball, they don't give a crap. They would rather you reach them. They'd rather you get outside and try to keep running because he's just going to get vertical and corner your guard. So you better be patient and stuff him to the guard.
That's exactly right. And here's the other thing now. Everybody's playing this four-eye stuff and, like, oh, God, four-eye. Well, if I'm the tackle, he's yellow light. I don't know. And I'm running C gap. I'll stuff him and hold him off. I gotta protect the tight end. Okay, if his guy hits it, of course, if somebody's out there lurking, if there's an add-on, the tight end is alerting, so it's easier for him to do it. But still, you don't know what's going to happen. So stuff the four-eye with your hands. Let the guard come over and either grab him or hammer him to you, and you're in pretty good shape. But the C gap is a different deal. Now, if I'm the same guy, I'm the right tackle, say, and I got a four-eye and we're running a gap scheme, okay, I don't want to block that four-eye. I want to step in a way to protect my gap, and if the four-eye hits it, I'm grabbing him. Okay, if he loops out, I'm going to square up because I'm square to air. And if he kind of rides me, I want to carry him as best as I can to the spot backer. Okay, I don't want him shutting me off. So these are things that you see a guy, they're running gap scheme gap, they're killing people. Then they get a four-eye and they go try to block the four-eye. Now, if you can block the four-eye with the tackle and knock his ass down, go ahead and do it every down. Why would you not? But when when it's Michigan playing Ohio State, them four-eyes are pretty serious,
If that's kind of what I prepare for when we get in the playoffs. I mean, I'm fine in our conference. If I beat the one or two teams, you know how it is. We're in about a three-team conference, and I got to beat one or two at the top. But the problem is when I get in the playoffs, I'm facing teams from up north, and they're a little bigger than us. You know how it goes.
Well, it's the whole idea is, to me, is you're back to when you condense, when you coil. Okay, you've made your body's a lever. Okay, your opponent will use it against you. Okay, as you shrink your body by coiling, and I heard this, the guys in the NFL now, I heard him talk about it the first time. He said for every inch a 300-pounder can coil, he adds 10 pounds of weight in resistance to his opponent. So in other words, I coil 1 inch. I'm 6 foot tall and I weigh 300 pounds. I coil 1 inch. Now I weigh 310. I coil 2 inches. Now I weigh 320, and I don't know if that's true or not, but I know when you coil, you're less susceptible to being used as a lever. And then we turned it around and we said, okay, that's 100% correct. I buy it because wrestling the whole bit. But not only that, when I coil, every inch I drop, I accelerate faster until you bend so much that you can't move at all. And so
you get too low.
right. So you got big stiff guys, and they say, well, how much should I coil? I say, well, as much as you can. Okay, don't worry about it. And then you get that one gifted kid who's 5'9" and he's 240 and he was a wrestler, and you say, keep that butt down, brother. Keep it down, and you won't get knocked around.
Yep, I agree. Coach, I appreciate the time, and I greatly appreciate everything you've done. You've helped me a ton over the years, and this has clarified kind of what I'm trying to get in my mind right and wrap around before we get going with drills and stuff here. You know what I'm saying?
Well, if you get a chance, look at some of the stuff that I have posted. I don't know if I can think of it, I'll send you stuff that I can think is pertinent to what you were talking about. But
Yes, sir.
the whole thing is it's interesting, and it's you know your body can mimic. A machine can only do one or two jobs. Your body can mimic any machine. It's never going to do a job that a machine can do, but it can do a lot of jobs, and you just have to learn how to bend it.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's it. That's I don't know. I'm having a little rye whiskey here.
I understand completely.
It's
That's a good thing.
I had a long day, so I figured I had to get lubricated a little bit.
I get it. Get relaxed a little bit right before bed. I understand.
Yes, sir.
I understand. All right, Coach, I greatly appreciate it. Thanks a
Well,
ton.
thanks for calling, and
Thanks.
we'll whatever. Okay. Yes, sir.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Coach.
Yes, sir.